here we are, the headlines. This afternoon, it's really hot.
So, with that all said, David, how are you doing today?
Pretty good, actually. Not bad. Just enjoying the slightly less heat of the day today. It's a bit cooler than it was yesterday, but chilling out quite nicely here. How are you doing?
Yeah, it's a little colder than yesterday, which is good, because, as you know, when I was speaking to you yesterday, it was too warm.
It was baking, wasn't it? Yeah.
Anyway, first question that I've got for you today is, how did you get into music?
Well, I mean, I didn't really think about doing music for a living. Music for me has always just been fun, you know, and I suppose when I was a kid, I always had tunes going on in my head and stuff, but I always imagined that everybody had that, so I didn't really think about it. But I was really, interested in TV and radio and broadcasting, and so I luckily got into working part-time at the radio station BBC in Birmingham when I was still at school. And it was so good. I just really enjoyed it. I used to go in at the weekend and help out, and I was just loved every minute of it. And just doing that, I learned all about broadcasting and editing tapes and audio and sound and what you could do with mixing and stuff like that. And then I suppose I just carried on doing that, and then started doing music for fun. You know, I bought a synthesizer when they first came out, when you could afford to buy them. You know, on the domestic market, because before then they were really expensive. And I just started writing tunes and making up songs and stuff, and got a band together and did what everybody does, you know, lots of people do that. And got the first little multi-track recorder, which was like this little 4-track cassette recorder thing, and started putting songs together. And so yeah, I was doing both at the same time, and thinking what, you know, with no real idea of what I was going to do, you know, for a career or whatever, but just enjoying it. And then one day, this guy I met really by chance in the BBC after work in the bar, we were chatting about music, and I was talking about my keyboard and stuff. He said, "Oh, you know, I'm looking for some theme music for our local news show. Do you want to have a go at writing a theme tune?" I went, yeah, you know, and it was like a sort of light bulb went on my head. I thought, wow, yeah, perfect thing to do, you know. And so I went off and came up with this idea. And then obviously they used it. That was my first theme tune on the telly, and I thought, it's like the heavens open. I thought, this is it. This is my direction. I'm going to write theme tunes, you know, and hopefully write catchy theme tunes and you know, cool theme tunes that people will like and want to listen to. Maybe go out and buy. So they're like having mini little singles, you know, mini hit records on the telly, you know, with a captive audience. So that's how I started, really.
And it has grown into a much bigger thing, especially when you got to do the news theme for the BBC News. Talk to me about the process of making that tune, and yeah.
Oh yeah, I mean it took really about 17 years to get to the point where they asked me to come up with an idea for doing the news music, and I was asked to pitch an idea along with a few other people, and I was really incredibly thrilled to be asked. You know, it was such an amazing big job. And what they got up until then, I don't know if older audience will remember. You're probably too young to remember the old-fashioned news themes of way back when, but they used to have really big orchestral things, you know, like massive big symphony orchestras and huge pompous type music. And so what they wanted to do with the BBC theme was have something completely and utterly different that nobody had ever heard before, and find a distinctive sound that you'd instantly recognise, you know, as soon as you heard it. It was almost as simple as when you hear the doorbell ring, you know somebody's at the door. When you hear an ice cream van going down the road, you know it's time to buy ice cream. They wanted something that said, as soon as you hear this sound, within a split second, you know it's the news, you know. So I got picked for the job, which I was thrilled about. But I'd done a pitch, which I think I've got here. You can have a quick listen to it. That was my pitch, and I sent that in. I thought, no, it's just completely wrong. It's not the right idea at all. So I sort of almost put it at the back of my mind, and then I got the phone call. They said, "Oh, you've got the job. They want to work with you on it." And I was like, "Yeah." So I went for another meeting, and then they said the pitch idea was wrong, but we need to find a completely new idea, a new sound. And we were talking about sounds that you instantly recognise that you'd heard on TV and stuff. And one of them came up was the pips, which is the beeps. which you hear on the radio. BBC's been using those beeps for, like since they started out, 1926, I think. It's the part of the Greenwich time signal from the observatory in Greenwich. And so they're quite a distinctive sound on their own. So, yeah, the picks would be great. How about adding a dance beat to them? So, start adding the bass drum and then adding the hi-hat and then a cool bass line. I was thinking the bass line could be something sort of almost like worldy, so it's boom, tap, tap, dum, tap, tap, dum, tap, tap, dum. Gives it that sort of flavour that you hear in India and South America and Africa. It's like a very sort of common world beat, so it gives the idea of a global sort of feel to the music as well as being modern. And then added some big drums for sort of drama and tension. They wanted a sort of sound that was like the Big Ben chimes on ITV that could herald like a new headline and stuff. So I found this sort of big drum and then it was then a case of like adding strings, or adding something that was like strings but not real strings, but it couldn't be too like, music is basically emotion in sound, it's like your emotions, how they sound, and so it's really, you can subtly change the way people think about something by just playing different types of chords. And so with the news, obviously, it's got to be really neutral. And, you can't have it too happy or too sad because the news stories change all the time. So I basically found two chords that work with the pips, which is just like a sort of minor chord to a major chord. And just sounds really nice with this pip running over the top, the same note, So that's like the sort of the signal going through and everything's changing around it, so the whole thing, the idea of it was there's a sort of concept behind the music, there's an idea in it, it's not just a piece of music. So I put all this together thinking, oh my god, it's a bit radical, what are they going to think, so I went down to another meeting with them and they said, oh, this is David, he's going to be working on the news theme, and I was introduced to all these guys from the BBC, sort of grey suits, all the managers and people, and I was like nervously waiting. He said, play us what you brought just to get the ball rolling, and I played the idea, and then Martin, the designer, just went, that's it, you've done it, wow, you've cracked it, that's the idea, perfect, that never happens, and so yeah, it is amazing to get the idea first off, it's because quite often it's a sort of evolution where you come up with an idea and it's not quite right, and then you work together, toing and froing until you come up with the right thing. But to get the actual concept idea straight away for something that massive was just like, yeah, it's like scoring the goal in the World Cup for England. It was an amazing feeling. So a great moment, that one.
Gee, and that was fun seeing how the songs sort of came all together there. You also did some other variations of the same theme, such as the countdown and the regional news themes for like the Midlands, Northern Ireland, America, even the Scottish Gaelic version. What was it like doing all those variations?
Well, the hardest bit really, because when we nailed the first idea, the sort of hardest bit was trying to work out how to do all those variations to make them distinctive to Scotland or Wales or Ireland, but still sounding like the news theme. And, the first sort of things of Scotland are bagpipes. You think, no, complete cliche. So you sort of go through the first ideas, and then it took a while just racking thinking and just trying to work out what to do. And in the end, it was very simple. It was basically just it was like the same band, different song, so it was using the same sounds, using the pips as a core sound, but then changing the sort of chords around it, changing the song, if you like. So it sounds like a Coldplay track. You can tell if you're listening to two Coldplay tracks, even though they're different, it still sounds like Coldplay. And so the concept was each track sounds different, but you can tell it's still the news, because of the distinctive sounds of it. So that became the sort of way of doing things. And the main one, of course, is the countdown. I think that's playing away there. And what they wanted was like a sort of 1 minute and a half build up to the top of the hour that they could use. If they were running over, they could just have 10 seconds worth, and if they were underrunning, they could have like up to 1.5 minutes worth. So it gave them a lot of leeway to play around with to get everything right technically, to get to the top of the hour again, when the news started over again. So I came up with this thing, and it was a really last minute thing. They asked me in the afternoon when we were putting it all together, oh, by the way, we need this 1.5-minute countdown thing. And the first time they'd mentioned it, we were in this studio session, we'd only got a couple of hours left, and it was like, okay. I said, well, go away and I'll see what I can come up with. So I basically took the pit idea and then just started laying chords over the top of it, and all the chords that would work with it and build up through. And so and it's a combination of being under pressure and a bit like, I've got to do something quick. You tend to have some quite good ideas, so it all came together quite nicely. And it's this feeling of this whole build-up and a sort of like growing to the final moment. So it was all quite electronic when it started. And now it's all become a bit more sort of a bit even bigger, So this is the current one. So it's quite nice to sort of create the sound of the BBC, that's what it feels like. It's like the iconic sound of "This is the BBC." And having wanted to work for the BBC when I was a kid and stuff, and it's quite, I feel very proud to have actually created something like that, and for it to, everybody knows it, obviously. So that's pretty awesome.
You did mention a little bit about Martin Lambinarn, who did all the idents for the BBC and whatnot. What was it like working with him?
Well, he was a real inspiration, actually. He because he had the concept, and a lot of what I still basically learnt a lot from him about simplicity. That was his key thing. It was about clarity and simplicity, and it was like finding an idea, just having an idea, not just a tune, and having a concept and something that people can listen to. And it was like finding something very simple. The way he used to work was finding very simple and almost minimalist, like less is more, don't clutter things. Just coming up with a simple idea and then putting that forward in a very elegant way. And so he was very inspiring, and he was sort of very single-minded as well. He just said, right, though, that's right, we're going to have that. And he didn't let anybody else sort of get in the way, and he didn't let the sort of committee decision water anything down. It was always like, yep, that's the idea, we're going to go with that. And it was he's a great guy to work with.
And there was also a EP of sorts released of parts of the music. Will there ever be like a new EP or new album of all the tracks that you've done for the news?
I mean, there's so many of them. It's like it's changed in a way now, because I suppose when that EP came out, there wasn't so much like online downloads and YouTube and all that stuff, where pretty much now everything is, a lot of it is already out there on YouTube, so there's sort of like I don't know, maybe something may come up, but there's no real plans for anything like that at the moment. It's just like just what's out there, really. But it was great fun doing that EP, actually. The EP was from BBC World, and what I did was again, it was in the studio when we were putting everything together. Martin said, we need some, it's called break filler music, they call it. So when they cut to an advertising slot, like halfway through the show, there's a designated like 3 minutes of time that they block in, whether or not anybody's bought any advertising space in that time. That time always exists, if you see what I mean. So if there aren't any adverts in the slots, they basically then have the break filler music going on, and then sort of like information, news headlines, sport headlines, trails for the next shows. And so they're constantly rolling, and so they needed the music to sort of like work in 30-second intervals in that slot, and each one would be subtly different. And and the inspiration I got when I was doing the BBC World music, it was all about a sort of this far away sound of echoing, sort of almost like a calling, like a beacon going ding 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 across the waves, across the ocean to far off lands. The BBC's ding 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 ding. And that was the sort of the idea behind it. And so I created all these sort of like electronic-y beds with that going through. And they were really popular. They got loads of people asking about them and writing in and saying, where can we get it from and stuff. And that came to doing that little EP CD single. And that was really good.
Another thing I want to talk about is the work that you've done in your own sort of alias, Touch and Go, especially the song Would You. Talk to me about that sort of project and what that was like.
Yeah, so one of my, of course, ambitions, I suppose a lot of musicians have, is to get in the charts. You know, you want to be, and get to #1 in the charts. Was wow, yeah, that would be amazing. Or just do an album and a single, and just like a record release rather than doing TV theme tunes. That was a real sort of something I really wanted to do. And I was fortunate to meet this guy called Charlie Gillett, who had a little record label called Oval Music, and he'd heard some of the things we've been doing for this British Airways ad, which was like a world music flavour called Dreamcatcher. And he said, maybe we could develop that into an album project. So over about 4 years, in between doing my TV stuff, we put this album project together, and then we got a release through Island Records, which was great. And they did that. It was all going great. And he said, right, what should we do next? And then Charlie said, well, maybe let's focus on just not coming up with some ideas, and don't worry about it being an album. Just come up with some ideas for singles. So I put some bits and pieces together, and then started formulating this idea about doing a Latin dance track, because Charlie said let's do Latin music was going to be a big thing in the dance scene. So started putting this dance track together, and I sort of like got a drum groove going like this. And we wanted to keep it really Spartan and just really minimalist. And Charlie had been playing these tracks by Propellerheads, which has basically got sort of drums and little sample sounds going. And we said, why do that, but with a Latin flavour, So I started putting these loops together, and just really good grooves. And I thought trumpet would be a great instrument to have, and we thought of doing Tequila, which is that tune. That didn't quite work. So we thought trumpet would be great as a sort of a massive sound in it because it's Latin. So I thought I'll have a trumpet sort of instrumental bit, and then we need a sort of vocal samples to go with it. And so this lady came along.
I've noticed you around.
And knocked on the door.
I find you very attractive.
Not really. So I did some music for a TV documentary, and the part of it was this sort of sequence they got with all these people saying, I noticed you around, would you go to bed with me? And I don't know, about two years earlier for Discovery Channel, and it was about the science of sort of sexual attraction and all the biology behind it. And apparently there was this survey in Texas where they got students to go into bars and go, I noticed you around, would you go to bed with me? And so the track I was thinking about, let's make a sort of chat up track so when you're dancing, having a great time, and if you see somebody that you liked on the dance floor, and they knew what the track was, you could smile and wink at them, and they go, great. If they smile back, a little bit cheesy, but there you go. And I was thinking, what would be a great line to put over that, and go, would you like to dance with me? Shall we go out or whatever? And I suddenly remembered these samples.
I've noticed you around. Would you go to bed with me?
And I thought, yeah, I remembered her voice. It was very distinctive. So I went into my little storeroom and dug out the VHS tape they'd given me to do the offline edit to, and wound it to that bit. And sure enough, that vocal, yeah, it sounded great. So I sort of sampled it off the VHS tape, that they'd sent me, and just dropped it in and started dropping that in as I went through.
I've noticed you around.
And the whole point is all the gaps, really.
I find you very attractive.
And you can just drop in that whenever you like, sort of thing.
I've noticed you around.
And then building the track up so
I've noticed you around.
And it sort of builds and builds and builds, the anticipation's going. And then until you get to the final point of...
Would you go to bed with me?
And leaving a gap, and then the trumpet crashes
Would you go to bed with me?
So it was all about the pauses and the gaps. And for the trumpet bit, I'd got this sort of chord sequence going, which was that. And I got Jim, the trumpet player that I'd worked with all the time. He'd been up to do some sessions in the studio. I said, oh, while you're here, Jim, can you just jam some chords over this, jam some riffs over these chords? And because he's a really good jazz trumpet player. So he came up with all these different riffs, which were really good. Just over that sort of. And then did a load of stuff. And then after he'd gone, I basically just listened through to what he'd done. And I just chopped out all the little phrases, all the really good riffs that worked, and made one sort of mega riff out of all of his riffs that he did. And I put them on the keyboard, which is how I'm doing it here. I just sampled the riffs and put them on the keyboard. I started playing along with the chords. And then came up with that riff, which is like one mega riff out of all the riffs that he'd done. And I started putting that together. So we got the sort of, and then going into the riffs. And then the last little touch was I changed the chords because the major chords sounded a little bit too nice. I think they needed to be a bit more sort of edgy to take it. So I changed them to minor chords and then put the samples over that. So it goes like this. And then I thought, yeah, that's sounding great. So the whole thing together was...
Would you go to bed with me?
And so the idea was sort of set there, and I played it to a friend who came round. It was at the weekend, and he said, "What have you been doing, Dave?" And I just sort of played him a few tracks, and I played him that one. And before he went, he said, "Can you give me that track? Can I have a copy of it?" I said, "Why?" He said, "I think it's really good, And that doesn't normally happen with people listen to it and they like it, but they never go, "Can I have a copy to take away?" So I thought that's interesting. So I took it down to play it to Charlie Gillett, at the record label. Then I played it to him and he went, "Congratulations, that's your first top 10 hit, you've done it, that's the one." And so it's an amazing moment because you need somebody like him to champion it. It's one thing writing it, but it's another thing altogether going out there and selling it and getting a record label behind it and stuff, which is what he did. He had the sort of faith in it. And then he was 6-7 months later from writing it, it got to on the Radio 1 playlist, and the rest is sort of history.
And it even appeared on Top of the Pops. So what was it like having that song appear on Top of the Pops?
Well, it was an amazing thing because Top of the Pops was obviously I've been watching Top of the Pops ever since I was a kid, so to actually have a song on Top of the Pops was pretty amazing. We were trying to work out what the visual look of Touch and Go was going to be, because up until the point of getting it onto Radio 1 and stuff, it was effectively just me in the studio, so which wasn't the most exciting look, So we're trying to work out what it was going to be, and we had this sort of brainstorming session at the record label, and they came along with some ideas of getting a choreographer and getting some dancers and getting a sort of guy pretending to play the trumpet. And we couldn't get the girl that did the samples was from America, and she wasn't really a performer. She was an actress and a sort of and a stage manager as well. So we couldn't rely. It would have cost a fortune to fly her over, and there's no guarantee that she could look good performing it. So Charlie had already got this Vanessa who he knew, who was an amazing performer and had a fantastic voice and was an artist in her own right. And she was sort of not. He said, "Would you like to front Touch and Go?" So she was up for it. So we had Jim and Vanessa, and then they said, "Okay, what are you going to do for the rest of it?" And Charlie said, "Well, yeah, I'm going to get a bass player and I'm going to get a keyboard player." And I was thinking, I'd love to be the keyboard player, but I'm not sure if I look right, So I said, "Look, if I don't look right, then don't worry about it." So yeah, I sort of, the moment I could have done it, I just sort of like chickened out a bit. But Jim, the trumpet player, just went for it, and I sort of chickened out, which I regret a bit, not actually doing that. But we went along to the Top of the Pop sessions, and it was an amazing day. They have like 4 stages, you know, and the Cores were on there the days that we were on. It was just incredible to see them. They were so good, you know, what they did, and they just had so much charisma, you know. You just like, when they walked past, you were just like, oh wow, the Cores, you know. And so it was a pretty amazing day, and you just got like arrive and then sent to the dressing room, and then you get one sort of rehearsal where they get all the camera positions right, and then you basically just sit and wait till the recording, and then they have the recording in the evening to get the audience in. And so they pretty much do it as live as they can. And so while there's one band playing on one stage, you're setting up your bit on the next stage round. And as soon as they're happy with the last take, they then move to your stage, and it's your turn to do your thing. And I think we had one run through basically, and then they just go, yeah, happy with that, and off you go. So it was a pretty awesome day, really.
You also did some other TV themes. One that I would know, and a lot of other people I know would know really well, is the Grand Designs theme. So what was it like working on that?
Yeah, Grand Designs was great. And funnily enough, the Grand Designs meeting I had, after the meeting that I'd had with the BBC when I played them the news theme, and they said it was the right idea. I had another meeting that day back in town with this production team, which I went along to, and of course I was like really excited because I just obviously got the news theme and stuff. And I said, I just got the news theme. I can't play it you, but it's really exciting. And they said, oh yeah, well that's really good. And they said, well, we've got this show that we're doing. And it's about people building their own houses, and it's about their dreams and their aspirations, and we're looking for a theme tune for that, you know. So the same day that I got the news theme sort of thing, I got the Grand Designs thing, and because I was sort of excited and fairly, mine was running anyway. So while they were talking to me about what they wanted, I'd sort of like formulating the idea in my head as they were chatting, you know. So I was going ding 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 ding, and I was thinking of a waltz theme and of a sort of magical feel, and almost like that sort of Disney-ish feel, you know, and of wonder and magic that you get with lots of sort of tinkly bells and a sort of, and so I put that together pretty quickly when I got home and sent that down to them, and they said, yeah, that's perfect, we love it, you know, we go with that. And so that really has been running since 1999, as well as the news music. So they both were pretty much born on the same day in a way. So
Wow.
that was a pretty awesome day.
And another theme as well that you did, one that I grew up with. I hope I didn't make you sound old when I said
right.
that. But it would be the Fifth Gear theme.
Oh.
And also you did a couple of tunes for Jeremy Clarkson's TV special. So
That's right.
what was Fifth Gear and the Clarkson stuff like?
Yeah, again, it was a different feel altogether. You know, it was a different direction, and it's much more sort of like hard, rocky, edgy. Again, great fun to do. The Fifth Gear one was the Clarkson one was great fun because I quite like. I mean, you know, he's like Marmite. You sort of you get him or you don't in a way. And yeah. I mean, I can see why people hate him, but I sort of quietly admire him because I think he's quite clever in the way that he puts this thing forward. So you want being Jeremy Clarkson was, you know, not that I any of his views I'm totally into, but I just think as a sort of you know, performer, presenter, he's pretty clever. So I thought it's got to be really brash, you know, and it's got to be really, and it's got to be down. So yeah, I went for this sort of like electric guitar, sort of down, 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 over some massive big sort of orchestral booms. And so it was really over. You could get it really over the top and a bit corny, you know. And that was the sort of idea of sort of like how you see Jeremy Clarkson in a way. But and then the Fifth Gear was great. Yeah, that was. We did lots of different variations of that, which was really good fun over the years. We came up with the original version, and then. You know, sort of like every couple of years, we'd sort of get together and say, okay, how can we make it a bit different this time around? How can we develop it? And it was great fun, you know, because you'd always work with a production team, and the director would come to the studio, and we'd all sit there and we just like play around with ideas, you know. And that was quite a popular one actually. The Fifth Gear one. It was one of those ones that sort of people seem to like, you know.
And one of your most recent composing that you've done, well, more so arranging in this case, was your arrangement of the X Factor theme for the last series of it, the celebrity version. How did you get the call to remake the theme for the X Factor?
Well, it was great because one of the program researchers phoned up the production team, and he was actually a big fan of the news theme, you know, from when he was younger. So he was sort of like he was already a fan, you know. So obviously they got to this point where what had happened was that they'd come up with this new show, and then Simon Cowell had said, "Look, I'm really bored with the theme music now. I think we need something different, you know. We've had this forever and it's sounding a bit tired. Let's go with something different." So, and everyone's going, "No, you can't change the theme tune. It's like iconic." And so they had to sort of like gently try and persuade him that they could maybe use the same theme tune. So they came up with this idea, let's get some different versions done and of the main theme, and we'll play that to him and come up with some other ideas as well. So I got the call, and they were production office was literally around the corner, and I said, "Well, come round and look, we'll have a listen to a few things." And he said, "Yeah, great." When I said, "Well, come round in the next half hour," he said, "Yeah, okay." So I got a few things together, and I thought I got this idea in my head, you know. While I thought, I'll just put it together while he's on his way, you know. So by the time he got to my studio in town in London, I'd already got a sort of idea happening, you know, that I could play him. And he was like really bowled over with it and the whole idea that you could just do that. And so he was like, "Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, really exciting," you know. So it was really good fun to do because he was very enthusiastic about it all the way through. And so we ended up doing 3 sort of different versions of the da 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 da, and you know, to basically to keep the old theme tune and then maybe have a different idea to go with as well. So what I did was came up with this sort of like a slightly, it wasn't again a Latin-y feel. That's the original theme music, which we all know and love. So I sort of like took the da da da. I started pretty much with like percussion and started just building a percussion theme and highlighting da da dum dum bum ba da, and then also adding some really like low, you know, raunchy brass going on. So it's all big, you know. So we came up with that as the sort of idea, and so we did that one and did another version. It was a completely different version, and then a sort of slower version of the theme. So we had 3 different ideas, and then it was a case of basically sitting waiting for Simon Cowell to sort of make his mind up about A, did he want to go with these theme tunes, and B, which one did he want to go with. So in a way it was like being one of the contestants on his shows, you know. I was just sitting there waiting for Simon Cowell to make the judgment, you know. And it was because it's a live show, they can literally change the music like an hour before the show's about to start, you know. So it was like pretty much like touch and go whether they were going to use it or not. And so it got to the Friday night before the Saturday first show went out, and they said, "Yeah, we're definitely going for it," you know. So pretty exciting time that was.
And other themes you also did was like Countryfile and The One Show. You even had a version of the EastEnders theme appear in a TV special for EastEnders. Speak to me about the differences between the 3. What were they all like?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is about theme tunes, or, you know, like, I mean, a lot of composers tend to sort of, you can do it 2 ways, really. You can actually stick to a particular style of your house style and develop that as your sound. So certain composers have got a very distinctive sound, and they're sort of booked because people like their sound. Whereas I've always been a bit of like, not hopefully, but I'd like to imagine sometimes that people wouldn't know listening to one theme that I'd done, say like The One Show, they wouldn't know that I'd done the news theme as well, because they sound completely different, you know. So my thing's always been able to sort of come up with completely different ideas and of different styles of music to suit every particular show, you know. So the joy of it has been is this completely creative freedom to go in any direction you like, and not tied down by sort of identity so much, as you can just be very creative about the directions you go in. So it's great to do. For one moment you're doing Countryfile with that sort of lilting da dee da da da, and then The One Show, which is, you know, much more da 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 da, and much more poppy and swingy and jazzy. So each program's got a sort of distinctive feel of its own, and that's a real joy to do. And you know, part of the pleasure and the fulfillment is giving a show a distinctive identity, you know, and a familiarity that people like, that the audience love, and that the production team get attached to, and gives it a bit of longevity, you know. So it's really good, that sort of direction of working.
You also did some music for the award ceremonies of the London 2012 Olympic Games. I remember watching it at the time. I had no idea you did the music for that. And so what was it like doing such a big event like that?
Yeah, the 2012 Olympics, that was a pretty major sort of milestone for me, but it happened fairly sort of, it was fairly under key in a way, and it was very late in the day. It was only about a couple of months before the games were about to begin. I got a call from Universal Records from a contact, and they said, "Hi Dave, we got this this music, you know, it's very confidential at the moment, we just want to see if you're available to work on it, a world music thing, which is your style." And I said, "Yeah, I'm available, yeah." So they said, "We'll get back to you." And they got back to me and explained what it was. And basically what they got was Chariots of Fire by Vangelis was going to be the anthem to the 2012 Olympics, you know, the main theme. And what they sort of thought would be a great idea would be to have variations of that theme for different groups of sports, you know. So like they got swimming, rowing, athletics or whatever. Would have one style of the theme, and then you know, gymnastics and whatever would have another style of the theme, as well as using the main thing. And the idea was to do to have it played during the medal ceremonies, you know. So when the athletes are getting up to get their medals, the music would play in the background, you know, in the stadium. And so they asked me if I could do like a world music style feel of the Vangelis Chariots of Fire theme, and of course I was like, wow, yes please, you know, because I was a massive Vangelis, I am a massive Vangelis fan anyway, and he was a real, and still is, an inspiration to me from when I started, you know. A lot of his music that he did, I was listening to before I started writing music. I thought, I just want to make music like that, you know, that's what I want to do. So to end up actually working on a Vangelis theme, and a fantastic piece of music as well, you know, was a real joy. And so I just had ended up doing like a 12-minute version of Chariots of Fire, and it's a very simple tune. Again, it's that sort of idea of simplicity and minimalist, because it's da 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 da. It's two parts, da 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 da, that A section, and then the da 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 da, sort of like a B section. To the tune, and it's just repeating, and that repeats for 12 minutes basically, but you never get bored with it. You just want to hear it over and over again, and even listen to it now, it still sounds great, you know. So it's a fantastic piece of music. So it was a real joy, and you know, just to add some world sounds and beats and lovely sort of vocals from around the world to it, and you know, hints of it as it went through. So it was a joy to do that one. And a complete honour, of course, as well. And the best moment for me was we were watching the tennis, you know, with Andy Murray, and because we were being tennis fans anyway, we got the tennis on, and it was like, and then he won the gold medal. It's like, Andy Murray's won, you know. So we were just super excited about that. So we came to the medal ceremony, and then he was up getting his medal, and then suddenly in the background there was my theme playing away in the stadium. Obviously he could hear it because it was live in the stadium. And so as he was getting his gold medal, my sort of arrangement of Chariots of Fire was playing in the background, and also he could hear it on TV as well, obviously. So again, that was a pretty one of those high points in your life. It was a great moment, that one.
Yeah, sounds it. Has there been any other things that you have worked on in the past before?
I've done some really interesting work for international companies, and that's been really good. I've done a lot of work for Chinese TV, their main channel, which is like they've got billions of viewers, and it's like the state TV channel. And I've done sort of all their main idents for that, and it's very interesting to work with because they want it to have a sort of Chinese flavour, a cultural flavour, that people recognise over there. But obviously, I don't know a lot about Chinese music, so I create what I think sounds Chinese and send that to Chinese people and go, does this sound Chinese, And so that's been really interesting so far. They love it, it's worked really well. And there's some moments when I've used interesting sort of sounds and samples like flutes and things, put those in, and then they've said, oh, that sounds too Mongolian, or I said, oh, right, okay, because to me, I don't know the intricacies of it to their ears, but so it's fascinating working with international clients and using music from their cultures, And I did a brilliant I did a lot of work for an Indian channel called NDTV, and I worked with this great guy over there, Adarsh, and he said, oh, why don't you come over and work over here, So I literally took my stuff to New Delhi, and set up in their TV station. He worked on the graphics mainly, but he did music as well. He was really into music. He got this office with all his gear in. So we set up his office at the TV station as a little studio, and literally, I spent 3 weeks there just writing music, for their Indian TV channel. And so that was an amazing time. And he knew loads of really incredible musicians, So we get sort of like the beds together and the basics, and then we book a studio in New Delhi, and we book all these musicians to come along, and they look so unassuming, when they turn up. This guy with his flute, this little guy. And the sounds that he made, though, were just awesome, incredible sounds. And this amazing tabla player as well that they always use, and which is quite interesting, really, because tabla players, they can do so much, and sometimes all you want really is a dong, dum, dum, something really simple, but they just can't resist going. So it's quite interesting to try and give them direction and stop them going crazy like they do, So that's really good fun doing that.
I had no idea that you did, all those different stations as well. I thought it was just maybe BBC, ITV, and Channel 4. No idea it was the other ones.
Yeah, no, Chinese TV, NDTV in India, Al Arabiya from Dubai, which actually they wanted to be very culturally centered, so that was about getting it to sound, that music that people in Dubai would recognize and associate with. So fascinating sort of thing to do, to recreate those sounds. One of the most interesting ones was actually was for the BBC, but it was for North Korea, of all places. But it wasn't actually commissioned, obviously, by North Korea. It was a new channel that the BBC, a radio channel that the BBC were going to put out from China or South Korea, that was broadcasting to North Korea, basically. So it was like news and information for North Korea, because they knew that people would be listening on their little sort of like little battery operated radios after, apparently they had power cuts in the evening after sort of 10 o'clock or whatever, and people would have these little radios, and they'd sit at home and tune in, to what they find. So they wanted a sort of news and information channel, aimed at North Korea, and they wanted some music from the BBC to go with that. So that was quite a fascinating sort of thing to create, you know, knowing that these people were going to be hearing this music coming out.
So I noticed a couple of keyboards behind you and a guitar and everything. So speak to me a little bit about your setup and how you work on your music at your home.
Yeah, but I mean, I usually start with obviously just, I suppose, on the piano, coming up with ideas. I mean, sometimes I just have a concept in my head, and then it's a case of sitting down and just putting it together. And then other times you can sit down and just sort of play around with chord sequences and stuff. So it's a little bit like cooking, you know. I always say to people it's like being a chef in a way. It's like you get asked to come up with a dish, you know, for a certain thing. And so you think, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll use chilies, I'll use garlic, on this one I'll use peppers or whatever it is. So you go to your list of ingredients and grab the ones that you like or you think is going to work, and then you put them all together, and you know, come up with a sort of the recipe idea, and then blend it all together, try different tastes, see if it's working, give it a good cook, you know, and then give it a good mix, and so it's a very similar process. It's like a sort of like a, you know, trying things out and working it out, and technology is so amazing now that you can basically access any sound really realistically. You know, they sound so amazing. So you've got sort of orchestras, guitars, whatever you want really. So you can create a sound palette and make it sound incredibly convincing pretty quickly, you know. So it's a limitless choice of stuff. So you can spend hours in here, you know, just doodling around. It's great fun.
And since you've worked in, I believe that you work in both tape and digital recording. Which one do you find better for yourself, tape or digital?
Well, I think I used to. There's a bit of like both have got their own merits in a way. Before digital, it was all you know, obviously analog, and it was all. There was no screen as well, you know, so you'd listen to everything, and there's the minimal of things to look at, and there'd be lots of like hands-on on faders and mixing and loading things, you know, so there's a lot more like manual touchy-feeliness going on, and it was all about listening to things as well. And with digital, it's just you're sitting there staring at the screen all day, and you know, so you lose that sort of that thing in a way, which was really good fun. But on the other hand, you gain so much in terms of being able to save mixes, to be able to get things totally right, and just the access to so many different sounds, and you know, the limitless possibilities that you've got to create stuff. So both have got their sort of advantages in different ways, really. So, yeah, you know. So I think I'd miss if I went back to completely doing it analog. I'd really enjoy it, but I'd sort of miss the chance to be able to save mixes and get things right, and you know. So it's yeah, both have got disadvantages and advantages.
Is there any other sort of music you'd like to do in the future or whatnot?
I mean, I'm just up for anything really that comes along that's interesting and fun. You know, it's just there's no particular sort of direction to go in that I haven't done really. But at the moment, I'm working on music for sort of yoga and relaxation, which is really good. We're putting an album together of music, of 15 tracks that you can actually play while you're doing yoga. So it's sort of like, because I've started doing yoga in the last couple of years and got really into it, and we thought it'd be a great thing to do, you know. So it sort of starts off as you start with yoga, you get warmed up and you prepare, and then you have a sort of slightly more energetic bit, and then you have a bit at the end where you sort of wind down and relax. And so that's been really good fun. And but obviously, you know, we don't want it to be it's music that everybody's going to enjoy, hopefully, not just because you do yoga, you know. So it's been great fun doing that, you know. It's a different area. But I mean, I'm up for work, for anything. Working with other people is always good as well. You know, it'd be great to work with some younger people. You know, some singer-songwriters, maybe looking for a bit of production ideas and stuff like that. So, pretty much, you know, I'm pretty open for anything really.
Well, if you're looking for younger singers, give me a shout.
Right.
Now, I'm going to go into the whenever I finish off an interview, I usually finish it off with the mad questions that I usually give to a lot of people. So, first one I'm going to go with is, do you like escargot?
Escargot. Yep. Snails. Yep. I quite like snails. Yep. Well, especially with a bit of garlic and a bit of parsley and a bit of butter. Yeah, very nice.
Which is better, Mario or Sonic?
Oh no, those hedgehogs, are they?
Yeah, Sonic's the hedgehog.
Not really a sort of like particularly know them that well, but I'd say Sonic sounds like a better name to me, so I'll go for Sonic.
What's your favorite sport?
I suppose it would be. I'm not a massive sports watcher generally, but I suppose I like watching tennis. Obviously football. I could get into football. I've never really got into it, but I can understand why people love it, you know, and get passionate about it. So I watch it, you know, for the big occasions like the Euros and all that stuff. So yeah, football's fun. Tennis. Yeah, that's probably about it, really.
Which is better, Shrek or the Bee Movie?
Oh, the Bee Movie.
You're the first person to say the Bee Movie.
You've got to be different.
And if I was to invite you to go see the new Space Jam movie with me, would you go?
Yeah, I'll give it a go. Anything's. I'm up for anything, really. Yeah. Not sure what it's about, but yeah, I'll give it a go.
Oh my god, you're the second person to say that. So, yeah, that's the end of the interview. Thank you very much for coming on. Is there any last things you'd like to say, and maybe a little track you'd like to finish off with?
Yeah, it's been great talking to you. It's been really good fun. So if I'm going to play it out on anything, I'll just play it out on what I'm working on at the moment, and this is one of my tracks from our forthcoming yoga stroke relaxation chill album. It hasn't even got a name yet, but so you're going to be the first person to hear it outside the production team, so let's hope you like it.